Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Monday, September 22nd, 2025, and I'm so glad to be back with you here on Your Free TV on the channel. I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act on reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So glad to be back with you here on this incredible Monday. We have so much to break down, but first I always start by saying thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Everybody, the monthly people who donate monthly, you make it happen on a regular basis. I'm so appreciative. I want to thank Matthew, Diane, Heather, Linda, all the people who mostly support monthly, but then also give a bit more. That's so appreciated. And of course, we have the fundraiser going on. So thank you so much. And I'll get into the fundraiser status at the end of the channel here. And my great sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV, the incredible ESS60 carbon 60 most purified molecule out there in the best lab in the world, crossing the blood-brain barrier. We're going to talk about that with what President Trump and his presser today came out with to do with the autism discoveries that they brought to us today. Very interesting. But anyway, check it out below. Everything in the description plus the fundraiser, and then I'll get more into it at the end of the channel, end of the broadcast here. So anyway, I'm so glad to be back with you here tonight, getting started a little late. And if you're like me, you might be feeling just really overwhelmed, or I would say I'm feeling a bit of rage about everything around the Charlie Kirk situation. The fact that we're being fed these lies and being expected to swallow it, being expected to accept it in this kind of mass formation psyop upon the American people, knowing that all the evidence is completely bunk, everything's bunk, the whole assassination the evidence and narrative is just completely and entirely off. And every time something new comes out, like the attending physician saying that, oh, the bullet hit the spinal column and then bounced down his body and exploded near his heart and sent shrapnel everywhere. All of these crazy things they continue to get even more crazy. And so we're facing this situation. Catherine Austin Fitts, I think, said it great when she said this is a giant psyop, and it's kind of a Reichstag fire moment, alluding to the Nazi Reichstag fire that kind of gave birth to this whole entire massive movement of the National Socialists of Germany and the Nazi movement. And I wouldn't equate it like that, but I think it's a massive psyop that we're going through, and it invokes massive emotions as well as psychological disturbances and all of it. And we went through the memorial yesterday, the ending with the Erica Kirk doing the I love you sign in American Sign Language, but also meaning so much to so many of us of doing the devil horns of Satan. Okay, at the very end, while she's literally attached to President Trump there on the stage at the memorial. If you haven't watched the Charlie Kirk memorial with, they're saying there was 200,000 in attendance. I think it was closer to about 140,000, still one of the most massive memorials ever attended in U.S. history for anybody. And so incredible event and incredible psyop. And we had people like Stephen Miller, and I'm jumping in here with the news. I'm going to get more into this later. But people like Stephen Miller invoking the whole storm issue. He's very close with Dan Scavino, who apparently has taken over a large part of doing the job there for personnel hiring in the White House, but Dan Scavino still being the Q whisperer there, and Stephen Miller close in there. and Stephen Miller invoking this whole, like, the warrior whispers to the storm, I am the storm, and we are the storm, Erica is the storm. And well, what is the storm? Because we're hearing Ben Shapiro, is being considered to be part of the face going forward of TPUSA, which is ridiculous, as Charlie being a massive Christian face and warrior, to replace that with a Jewish person, for entertainment purposes only, Mossad agent, and everything I've been talking about on this channel forever of Chabad Lubavitch, the rabbis on Fox News the night of Charlie's murders. One of them, one of the operatives saying, we just got to kill the guy who killed him, and then we'll figure it out later. And the rabbis saying, we are TPUSA now, and all this insane stuff. And this all happening, of course, at the same time. And I think Benny Johnson is kind of vying for the Charlie Kirk show there on Real America's Voice. We'll see what happens there. It's kind of looking like that, like maybe Benny Johnson's going to take up that seat. We'll see. But when we look at everything with the massive memorial yesterday, and that we all were sat through it, while there has been this massive psyop around how Charlie died, supposedly, right? And still, I'm in the zone of, did they plan to save him from attempted assassination and he's still alive, or is he dead? And they got him anyway, kind of thing. All of it looks so bunk that there's no way you can believe anything. And this is a way that they totally destabilize us as a movement of people who believe in truth, conspiracy facts, basically where there is a conspiracy and it's factual. And we want to chase it down and find out every single thing we can about what has gone on here. And there's so many channels doing great jobs of breaking down everything to do with the what is it, six, the 306 or whatever it is, the bullet out of the Mauser that can blow away, elk bones, everything that they're telling us about the rounds used as lies, all of it's lies. Okay, so I'm just kind of reiterating what we already know. So we're watching a kind of MK Ultra mass formation psyop that just accept what we say, pretend that you can agree. And this is one of the most destabilizing psychological positions for people who have cognitive abilities, who have basically discernment, and are able to realize that we're being put through something that is intended to destabilize us, or at least the people who factually follow things the closest. And I'd say that's hugely a Christian population here in this instance, and that we're expected to go along, to get along, while they continue on with whatever this is, okay, with Erica Trump, that's funny, but Erica Kirk taking over Turning Point USA and everything that's going on now. So I'm going to jump in here because there's so much more news besides that plays into all of this, and everything's really shaky because we could say, oh, it's the plan, the big plan, there's some big plan, right? Tomorrow I'll be getting into kind of, I'll be getting into the 3-eye atlas, being a giant object that is hurtling towards Earth, not supposedly to hit Earth, but to be very, very close within the next couple weeks. And I'll be covering how it seems to be being more and more defined as a structured, intelligent thing. But I'll be getting into that tomorrow. And I think that plays into all of this, which I will get into tomorrow. But we have the UN General Assembly happening this week all across New York, where we have, the Al Qaeda jihadi, now the president of Syria, Jalani, who now is, some other name, which I'll get into in a moment, who is now just basically speaking before the United Nations, making a pact with Israel, okay, a security pact with Israel. We have, of course, after the show of, it was like a Epstein Files unification, like, just like a whatever party at Windsor last week, where we had Larry Fink was even there, okay, the head of BlackRock, the World Economic Forum, and controlling the pension funds of most of the United States people, Europe, and Mexico, controlling all those pension funds, was also there at that meeting as the UN is about to is coming together, came together today, and then Trump will be speaking before the UN tomorrow, and supposedly to be a very controversial and possibly game-changing speech, and what he's going to propose at the UN. However, we have von der Leyen and others, and so when I alluded to what happened at Windsor, we had the UK US technology prosperity agreement, where they're going to now the US and the UK are going to continue sharing every single level of knowledge about quantum computing, the development of quantum computing, the development of everything to do with intelligence technology, and basically artificial general intelligence, everything mass AI is now aligned directly with all of the institutions getting together to share every single information, and also to make sure that the US gets to build lots of nuclear plants inside of the UK, and that the UK must, by 2028, get rid of all of its Russian nuclear energy. And so it is all, it's like a hodgepodge of crazy, okay? Because we have the UK, Australia, and Canada, the dominions, right, of the UK, of the crown, coming out and saying that they want a Palestinian state. And then we have Trump meeting with Netanyahu for the fourth time after the Charlie Kirk murder on Friday, right? He's meeting with him on Monday the 29th. And then we're going to get Netanyahu speaking before the United Nations on Friday the 26th. And of course, hurtling around to all the other AIPAC, Mossad adjacent members of our government in between, as all of this goes down. And also we get DNI Gabbard coming out and saying, hey, we kind of have a massive threat here of an October 7th style sort of escalated elevation warning of Islamic jihadist attacks on the US incoming. And to be expecting that this is something they're hunting down and trying very hard to stop any Islamic jihadist attacks. So, and this is as, we have the Islamic State and the Muslim Brotherhood funding everything out of Qatar and UAE and everywhere else to create massive, huge communities of Sharia compliant and halal compliant communities across the United States. And so it's a chaos situation that is meant to completely destabilize the psyche. And all while now we also have this incredible autism presser today, which I'll get into, because that is also amazing and fantastic, and not as far as most of us would like to go, but hugely pertinent and potent and important for the people of the United States and their children. And so that is a big win, I would say. That one's a big win. And so looking at the UN General Assembly this week, right, I was looking at some of what they were talking about today. It mostly has to do with Agenda 2030 that Barack Obama signed us on to, and it's all about basically the third world leeching off the first world, and about, of course, with Larry Fink now in control of the World Economic Forum, BlackRock, that they are bringing up again the NACs, the natural asset corporations, to protect the environment, which is mostly means to monetize the environment for investors to make sure we don't access the wilderness areas or what they then deem non-human environments. And so what we have is basically von der Leyen coming out in the last couple of days that she was at the European Democracy, what was it called? The EU Center for Democracy Resilience. And von der Leyen is facing a huge vote of no confidence as she was installed again as the head of the EU Commission. There's riots across to do with anti-Islam migration across Italy, France, Germany. There's just so much going on in the resistance against what is happening with migration. We have Nigel Farage, and I'll get back to von der Leyen in a second, but we have Nigel Farage, who, head of the Reform Party UK, is basically he's towering above everybody else, above the Tories, above Labor with Starmer's at like 13%. The Tories, he's tens of digits above at like 35% of the population in the UK, and especially after the massive rallies that happened the weekend before, where he's saying we're going to deport at least hundreds of thousands of these Muslim migrants from Africa and beyond. That this has to change, and so Nigel Farage is now taking up that mantle, which is exciting because he was a little bit squirrely and quiet on the subject, and it was I think very disturbing to the people who would want to support him, but he can't ignore the main cause of the total destruction of UK culture, of the British people's culture. And so back to von der Leyen, what we get here with her no confidence vote, she was kind of booed at this EU Center for Democracy Resilience talk, where she is saying we need this thing called the European Democracy Shield. And she said that's our main point at the UN. In the US this week, the General Assembly is to push that this must be formed, that this is basically just about censorship. That she said, oh, with the new technology and everything, with all of the mainstream news failing, okay, you now have what she calls news deserts, okay, across the world, where people can't get access to our talking points, can't get access to our mandates and dictates about what they should think and what's going to be the news, what is going to be the truth as we tell it to them. That these news deserts are a massive problem, and that they must have this European Democracy Shield and create a new and fund with their taxpayer dollars of the people already super struggling throughout Europe, this new EU center that will, of course, deal with mass censorship, because they keep failing with all their attempts to push their censorship across the world, even though they've been very successful. I mean, look at Soros here in the US, owns over 270 of the Audacity radio stations, and of course what's been going on with Disney, ABC, and all that, and yes, Kimmel's back up, and it's another giant psyop there. But so she wants to pass this democratic integrity online sort of EU pact here at the United Nations this week, so she'll be pushing that hard, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, and I'll be reporting on it. And the huge push here seems to be this Vision 2030 program that they are all superintending to push through. And so, within that, in that realm of realizing that's their push, we also have in our own corrupt and disgusting U.S. Congress and Senate with this Charlie Kirk resolution, Charlie Kirk Act, that they are trying to slip in the as-is Smith-Mundt Act, right, which is the situation of it being completely redone by Barack Obama and that it used to protect people in the United States from propaganda and propaganda from news stations, the broadcast stations, and that then it was redone by Obama to be the Anti-Propaganda and blah 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 Act that basically okayed propaganda. Okay, the reversals upon reversals, as they always do and say. And so that is getting squeezed into this Charlie Kirk assassination, as if it is to protect us when it is to actually keep the same thing going on. And this is part of all of the massive psyop that we're living through here with this Charlie Kirk assassination, where we have to, not have to, um, uh, we don't believe what is the narrative and what they're telling us, and that everything coming out of it so far, aside from, a massive, incredible, awakening for lots and lots of people towards Christianity and towards getting active, which I think is very, very positive. But the rest of it is by inserting control over a massive movement and then growing that movement to be controlled towards an end that we're not quite aware of yet, but yet seems to be pointing towards World War III. And that gets into what I think I might jump towards now, and then I might come back to some more stuff about yeah, hold on one second. Let me just, I want to get into the autism press conference, and I will in a moment, but I want to get into this situation of Tulsi Gabbard and what she is saying here with this threat of imminent, possibly Islamic terror attacks on the United States. And this apparently went to the Daily Caller. And what we get here, and I love Tulsi Gabbard. I really do trust that she believes in her intelligence and in what she's saying. And Joe Kent as well, doing a great job there at DNI, the Office of DNI. But this is what she's saying, expecting more aviation attacks, okay? Expecting attacks on DC specifically, all right? And we've known that they've been putting up massive flyers across all the campuses across the United States saying some huge DC thing to kick off on November 5th, coming up in early November for some major situation in DC to do with, she's saying, Al Qaeda operatives, and also on attacks, this is the big one, attacks on where people live, work, and play, okay? And things like our infrastructure, like hospitals, law enforcement, sports events, this kind of thing. And basically alluding to that this could be an October 7th type moment in the United States. And this is, just as Giuliani, whatever his face is, I can never remember his new name that they renamed him. He was like Black Site Giuliani, who had like a $10 million bond on his head and a massive Al Qaeda agent. Now he's president of Syria, toppled Assad. Finally, nobody else could. Huge pact with Israel, security pact going on, and now he's here in the United States. Okay, Trump took away all of the sanctions on Syria. Well, they're killing and slaughtering all the Christians since Giuliani arrived, with massive help from Israel, and this just keeps going on. The constant slaughtering of Christians, and accelerating. And so while we're seeing this happen, and basically, the imminent, we have to wonder about the UN General Assembly, I would think, in New York, and anything that could happen, and so we want to pray, because all of this, seeing through the confusion is, the Holy Spirit and God's armor is what gets into us and helps us see through this, helps us continue to stay in our Christian prayer in our knowing with ourselves, okay, that we don't get drawn here or there too extremely, but try to stay in the center and try to stay with the truth and what matters. And so with this situation and this warning, let's pray for this week, okay, for the UN Assembly and Trump's speech tomorrow that's supposed to be very volatile and very intense for its ramifications for what it could mean for the world. And it's being kept quite hush-hush what the actual talking points of his speech are going to be. Of course, the Finks and the Black Rocks and Vanguards of the world, all the propaganda out there saying he's going to continue, shut off more funding, hope he does. But what would be the best to me would be just take the USA out of the UN and kick the UN out of the United States, as well as all the UNESCO sites and everything that is our American soil that should not be owned and run by the UN, the eugenics model of global domination. So I hope for that. But we know Trump is talking about taking back Bagram Air Force Base. Of course, Bagram Air Force Base was not originally built by the United States. It was built by Russia way back during the Afghan-Russian War, dating back to the 1950s and going on from there. And then the U.S. took it over and built it up. And it looks like with Trump threatening the Taliban in Afghanistan again, that we're coming to take the Air Force Base back after they already have the $80 billion in our weapons and armaments already gone to fund all of fund, but also arm. Okay, the mercenaries to Ukraine and everywhere else, Syria, Jelani, et cetera, et cetera. We have, of course, this what could happen here with the Taliban and the U.S. with this Bagram Air Force Base. Trump's huge statement that U.S. will be taking that back, and he always says that's 100 miles from where China builds its nuclear weapons, and of course it is a position against China. And this is all happening after this great talk with Xi, supposedly he had on Friday, and the TikTok deal and all of this. But outside of all of it, all of this looks deeper and deeper like a world war scenario being ginned up. And we pray that it is beyond that this is a containment operation that's going on. But when we see the U.S. partnering up with the U.K. for everything, AI, intelligence, and quantum computing, it cannot, it doesn't inspire good things and confidence, okay, at all. On this channel, if you've watched this for a long time, you remember me with Mike McKibben and Leader Technologies, and how Mike McKibben and his team out of Leader Technologies had created the first original social media platforms, the whole infrastructure for it. They had created all of the machinations for what creates social media, and got it stolen by Incutel and the Pilgrim Society operatives out of that, and were completely robbed of that technology and the profits from it. And it's gone now into what is now going to launch into this quantum computing alliance now with the country who, the UK, the British Empire, having been controlling the United States from behind the scenes for all this time, all along. Even though we have created the greatest country, but became the workforce and cash cow for the world on top of American labor. And what was incredible immigration that became a workforce immigration and became a truly what was a not easy, but a melting pot of people coming up and being able to build incredible things in this country and in their lives and in their lineages throughout this nation. And so I might move from there as we ponder on what is going on there with Um, sorry, I'm checking out one thing. Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, yeah. And so I'm going to move over here now at 30 minutes to the Trump presser today to do with autism, which I do think is one of the most important things that is really, really important, even though it also is extremely limited. But it is incredible for the US president for the first time in forever to get up there and stand up against Big Pharma and talk about the vaccines being dangerous to children's brains in the way they are currently being administered, as well as the threat of Tylenol and the threat of acetaminophen, and also aluminum, mercury, him going further than RFK Jr. today in this press release, in this press conference. Basically, he said Trump said, this is one of the most important news conferences I've ever done. Charlie Kirk actually brought me and Bobby Kennedy together. He made a point of saying 1 year ago in Arizona. And he basically went on to say that we have the situation where children who take no vaccines, he literally said this first off in the press conference, which was quite amazing, that children who take no vaccines seem to have no autism. And he talked about the Amish. He talked about them having no autism or no ADHD in their children in the Amish community, which was quite amazing for him to say. And then he talked about a Tylenol and acetaminophen, and he basically said that don't take it during pregnancy. He said this basically what it does is that it thins the blood-brain barrier in a woman who's pregnant who takes it, or when you give them the children's Tylenol, right? The children's Tylenol. So the child comes back from taking multiple vaccines, gets home, has a massive fever and massive, just brain exploding, massive inflammation. You give them a bunch of Tylenol, and then it just makes all of that go in that much quicker into the brain, causing neural tube total annihilation. Okay, and then that's when the kids go into full autism. And so it was incredible to watch Trump do this today and to basically take on the strongest stance between RFK Jr. and he took it on board beyond RFK Jr., beyond Bhattacharya, Oz, or McCary, basically saying that vaccines need to happen at a much slower rate over 5 years, not giving them 80 in their first year that they're alive. Very incredible, really quite amazing. And while I don't believe that that there should ever be another shot, I'm on the Mikovits train there, Judy Mikovits, who has studied everything about all of this forever. That for this to be a way to awaken people to actually question, well, if I'm not supposed to take it all at once, what I've been doing, and why are we taking these things, And Trump also coming out very clearly and saying the MMR must be broken up, the mumps, measles, rubella needs to be 3 different shots. Just you get back to all the activism that people have been doing now for decades that Trump came out in this press conference and said out loud. And so that is incredible. And so very interesting, of course, because they're pushing hugely leucoferrin. And leucoferrin is used mostly in cancer chemotherapy, okay? And basically it is, GlaxoSmithKline. And I know that Trump just made some massive deal with GlaxoSmithKline, right? In the United States, they're going to create leucoferrin here in the United States, and we're going to put it on Medicaid, says Oz. And every autistic child can now take leucoferrin, and it'll going to have great results, and we're going to study it. And Trump says one of my biggest things in my presidency is curing autism, and we want leukoferrin to do it, and it'll be paid by Medicaid along with your Ozempic, and you'll be good to go. And it's all just, fairy tales. Leukoferrin is basically a synthetic, what is folinic acid, okay, and it's B9, it's a synthetic form, and it is made by GlaxoSmithKline, a leukoferrin, and this is basically what they're confronting is that, oh, somehow, amazingly, there's some autoimmune issue where these newly born infants suddenly have autoimmune issues where their brains, their folate receptors create these autoimmune antibodies, okay, and called FRA. And this is, the folate can't process in the brain. And this, of course, becomes a lifelong methylation problem. And the interesting thing about all of this being so interconnected is that methylation problem then leads to all kinds of beyond ADHD and all of these other issues. If it's not full-blown autism, it often leads to things like addiction or other ways that people try to figure out how to get their brains to function better when they get on benzos, or they get on other drugs, and the Ritalin, all of it, to try to regulate their brains when literally their brains just can't methylate and they can't take in the B vitamins. And so it's not only folate, but multiple things others. And you look at things like lithium orotate and all these other solutions to this, but very, very powerful and interesting to watch Trump do this today. And I believe on Thursday there's going to be some kind of roundtable discussion with multiple doctors also being done out of the White House Thursday for like 5 hours. And so we'll be checking that out and covering it as we go. But it's very interesting to watch that, they're funding projects to go to root causes of autism. They're checking out something called exposomics, looking at basically getting rid of the genetic approach, which was just a big pharma cash cow to get this whole mRNA machine going and get the whole genetics sequencing mass billions of dollars going into it. Instead saying, no, we need to look at the major environment here and look at everything and get rid of the aluminum and mercury, etc. So very interesting and huge for Trump to come out against Big Pharma today and say these need to be reformulated, redone, and spread out over many years. And of course, on this channel, as I said, I don't believe in vaccines, and I don't believe in getting them. And so, we're going to leave that there with that. And I think I want to move on here to a couple other little topics before we go. We have well, we have a bunch of things. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here with just the next few minutes that I'm going to continue going. Okay, I think this one's really important. This one has to do with the hugest, maybe 2020 election steal evidence that has been obtained by an independent person and can't basically be shot down or stolen, taken down by the rogue judicial systems. What we have here is Yehuda Miller, a New Jersey resident, who has over 1 million. He FOIA'd and then sued the government for 2020 election documents, specifically to do with Detroit, Michigan. And we remember Detroit, Michigan is where they had, all the vans coming in, and you had the Biden bump there in the middle of the night, and just the massive amounts of mail-in ballot fraud that went down there in Detroit at that huge center. And Yehuda Miller, he gets 1 million of these election documents obtained via his FOIA massive lawsuit. And because the statute of limitations ran out, that they could keep them from the public, and so he was able to get them. He has a giant van full of them. He has the electronic data. He has all of it. He has the absentee ballot actual copies, okay, of all these absentee ballots out of Detroit. He has the signed envelopes, the absentee ballot applications, the QVF files, and total electronic files of everything. And so this is the Detroit, Michigan, just massive reveal. And I think this is going to be huge for what's coming down to do with the 2020 election steal reveal. And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and incredible that you have a person, a New Jersey resident, who goes out and makes this happen. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, Mr. Miller. We are very appreciative of this. And, you know, it's interesting because as we're, you know, seeing Trump kind of go back and forth on Bondi and saying things like, well, you know, you know, Trump is saying, hey, look, people are up my bum here. Like, where's the prosecutions on Comey and, Clapper, et cetera? Where's all these prosecutions? We have these grand juries, and we're seeing that Ed Martin and his grand juries are being stifled by U.S. attorneys. And so it'll be interesting to see, because I believe one of these grand jury situations is being held in Virginia, and Trump is now nominating Lindsay Halligan into that U.S. attorney position there and she's a senior White House aide, and they're trying to combat what's going on with U.S. attorneys. Even though you would think that Ed Martin would have chosen the states that would have made this easy, it doesn't look like it is going this way. And so we're going to keep watching that as it continues. And I might be leaving it there today. Basically, you know, I feel like it's been an overwhelming time of watching this mass formation event go on of Charlie Kirk, and that those of us who work so hard towards truth being asked to by the people who we want to trust, or at least want to expect some truth from, literally pulling the wool and covering up the evidence, and continuously and constantly doing it. And regardless or not, or whether there's the messages and there's the whatevers, the people of the United States being expected to participate in a hoodwink that involves mass psychological manipulation, to the extent where you would induce enormous, huge wave of what is energetic grief, a huge wave of energetic lies, untruths, and then expect everyone to continuously go along with that, especially during this heightened time, with the central figure in the conservative movement is it is a mass formation event. It is basically asking the American people who know more and know conspiracy facts to accept basically an abusive dynamic. And I say that pointedly, I say it specifically. It's an abusive dynamic. It's a Stockholm syndrome type style dynamic, where you are basically said, just let it go. The fact that all of this is untrue, but we have a goal and end in mind that, when done on this scale, on the largest memorial ever held in the United States for an individual human, of 140 1,000 people and millions and millions and millions watching in the United States and across the world, to watch this celebration of a fake event whether he's dead or not. The event itself has been faked to the American people is extremely disturbing, and to me, it's just a giant call out to God that we find our centers with God and within and with our communities. And I think that part of this is the creating the confusion of when we just get to a breakthrough of being able to talk more clearly with people, we're now faced with another massive confusing event that is time specifically when we're at the brink of World War III. We have the massive threat again of Transnistria and what's going on. We had, of course, now the Russian planes entering the airspace of Estonia, the e-citizenship, AI transhumanist little capital there, country, and the UN General Assembly, all of this at pinpoint times. We have massive threats of an Al-Qaeda mass assault on the USA. We have all of these dominions of the UK saying there must be a Palestine state. Netanyahu meeting with Trump for the 4th time. And while that could all just end up for incredible good, it is hard to put those parts together. It really is. And it's creating chaos at a time where we need cohesion. And there isn't, I would say, the majority of the people who attended that Charlie Kirk, for entertainment purposes only, memorial or watched it, etc., all have the same questions, that this is not right, that there has not been, we've been hoodwinked about the assassination, and we're being hoodwinked every single day that new incorrect news comes out. And I don't care how much, Patel, FBI Director Patel, we hear Dan Bongino's just about on his way out, perhaps Patel as well, but I think Dan Bongino's like leaving next week. And of course, we'll get the new guy in, but they brought in from Missouri. And he's saying, oh, yes, we're looking into all the theories of, other shots, other guns, the trajectory of the bullet, all of these things. We're looking at them, right? And so don't get super absorbed in any more of this, is what I would say. It's important to discern the lies and discern who's behind it, what's going on. And of course, I think the usual people are behind it. And we've seen the trajectory of where they're pointing it towards. But the rest of the world, what's going on outside of the Charlie Kirk assassination is massive for what it means for possible World War III coming up, the antagonism towards Iran. And all of that is really just everybody's in it together. And who gets left with the body bags is humanity, okay, and especially the West right now, as they intend to take down the West. And so we pray for discernment. We pray for discernment that President Trump gets some truth out to us, and also that we have the full armor of God and the knowledge of God within us in our discernment as we go forward with everything that's coming, because it's going to be a very intense few months, to say the least. And so I think, leave it there for tonight, a little shorter than normal, but we'll be back tomorrow. Oh, I think I might leave you with this. Trump did say in an interview recently that if he could only eat one thing for a week, he almost freaked out when he heard it would be forever. But when he was told that it was a week, he said it would be steak that he would eat, and that his only thing on his bucket list is to make America great again. He said we've been abused by other nations for so long, so many decades, and that is my only goal and focus for my life. So if we trust and pray on that, we trust there is so much that we don't know and that we pray about. And of course, Trump also did say today that if he could reverse the autism pandemic, he said basically, openly, just blatantly, that autism is artificially caused. Okay, and that is miraculously historic. So we praise him for that. We praise him for that. And I thank you all for watching. And, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about Three Eye Atlas, what's going on with this intelligent, giant, massive being that supposedly is hurtling towards our hemispheric center. So that'll be interesting. But, I basically just want us all to, be centered, be knowing that, God has us, and to know that all you really need to know is God, and prayer is paramount and clear. That praying to God and having confidence in God is enough when you don't have the answers to everything else. Confidence in God is what brings you through it, because God's plans are extremely, incredibly, divinely designed, with things we can't even imagine. And so I have faith in that, and I have faith in Jesus Christ, and I have absolute faith that we will be guided through this. And so I will leave it there with that. I will thank you again for watching. If there's anything helpful or insightful you got from this video, want to support the channel, there's ways to do so below. And I will also, of course, bring back the mention of my sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. And anybody who's ever donated to the channel or who does gets 15% off with the code and sent to you in a different email, different link. And this is the incredible ESS60 molecule made in the best lab for carbon-60 in the world in Houston, Texas. American company, organic, incredible, single-sourced olive oil are in these capsules, the highest potency of the carbon-60 in here. And I'm also doing and they also do, of course, the oils for people who don't like capsules. I like the capsules because I like to keep them in my pocket. They're just handy for popping when you need them. People basically talk about the incredible results for everything to do with cellular disease problems, okay? But also just simply for having more energy and clarity and focus during the day. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets in there with your glutathione, melatonin, takes the garbage out of your cells, hugely used for longevity, anti-aging, all of it, anti-inflammation of the, the cytokine kind. And of course, the MCT oil is amazing as well. People love this for workouts and recovery. And then there's also, of course, the giveaway on this channel. Excuse me, not the giveaway, the fundraiser on this channel, which I do give away 2 bottles of the caps every month to people who donate to the channel in a random selection, random pick. 2 people get a bottle of this each month who are supporters of the channel. But I'm also doing a fundraiser for the channel with the C60 caps that had recently expired, in the sense that, as they have to do, they get expired. But this has a huge shelf life. I explain it all below. I think this will be the last week. We're getting real low here. This will be probably the final week of this fundraiser for You Are Free TV, where basically if you offer $50 plus $10 shipping, we'll send you a bottle of what are the technically expired caps that have 8 to 10 year shelf life sent to you. So if you want to try it, or you want to give it to friends, or whatever you want to do, this week might be the last week. And we're going to be talking more on Wednesday about some of the incredible new things going on to do with Evo. But I think this will be the last week of this fundraiser for You Are Free TV. And so check it out below in the description. I explain how it all works and how you can do it, etc. If you want to try out the product or share it with friends. Thanks so much for watching. You are free. I appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow and dig deeper into the massive, shall we say, the massive confusing, but also brilliant and exciting and animated contest of liberty that we're all moving through right now. We are free. I'll see you then.